Story 1. I was in Phoenix for a work conference last month. My company had booked me a rental car for the 3-day trip. Nothing fancy, just a basic sedan to get around the city. I'd been driving rentals for years without any problems, so I figured this would be another routine business trip. The conference went well, and on my last day, I decided to fill up the gas tank before returning the car to the airport. The rental company charges ridiculous fees if you don't return it with a full tank, so I always make sure to stop at a gas station on the way. I found a station about 10 minutes from the airport and pulled up to pump number 6. It was one of those newer stations where you have to pay inside if you want to use cash, and I prefer paying cash for gas when I'm traveling for work. Makes the expense reports easier. I got out of the car, locked it with the key fob, and headed inside to prepay for $40 worth of gas. The station wasn't busy, just me and a couple other customers browsing the snack aisles. The cashier was a young guy who seemed friendly enough. Cashier, 40 on pump 6. Me, that's right. I paid cash and headed back outside to pump the gas. That's when I realized something was wrong. The car wasn't there. I stood there for a moment, wondering if I'd somehow forgotten which pump I'd used. But no, there was my receipt in my hand, pump 6. And pump 6 was definitely empty. I looked around the parking lot, thinking maybe I'd parked somewhere else and walked to the wrong pump. But the car was nowhere to be seen. Someone had stolen my rental car. I went back inside to talk to the cashier. Me, someone just stole my car from pump 6. Cashier, what? Are you serious? Me, dead serious. I came in to pay, went back outside, and it's gone. Cashier, do you want me to call the police? Me, yes, definitely. While we waited for the police, the cashier pulled up the security camera footage on his computer. We watched as I parked, got out, locked the car, and went inside. About 2 minutes later, a woman in her 50s walked up to the car, tried the door handle, then somehow got it open and drove away. Cashier, how did she get in? Didn't you lock it? Me, I definitely locked it. I always lock rental cars. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. 2 officers, both looking like they'd dealt with car thefts before. Officer, can you describe the vehicle? I gave them all the information: make, model, color, license plate number. Luckily, I'd taken a photo of the rental agreement with my phone when I picked up the car, so I had all the details. Officer, any idea who might have taken it? Me, no clue. The security cameras caught her, though. We watched the footage together. The woman was clearly visible, medium height, blonde hair, wearing a bright red jacket. She didn't look around nervously or act like she was stealing something. She just walked up to the car like she owned it. Officer, that's bold. Most car thieves at least try to be sneaky about it. Me, how did she even get in? I locked it. Officer, could be a few things. Maybe she had some kind of device, or maybe the rental company gave out duplicate keys by mistake. The officer took my statement and said they'd put out a bulletin for the car. He also suggested I call the rental company to report it stolen, which I did immediately. The rental company representative sounded skeptical at first. Rental rep, you're saying someone just took the car while you were inside? Me, that's exactly what happened. The police have it on security footage. Rental rep, okay, we'll mark it as stolen in our system. Do you need another vehicle? Me, I just need to get to the airport. My flight leaves in 2 hours. About an hour later, while I was in an Uber heading to the airport, one of the officers called me. Officer, we found your car. Me, already? Where was it? Officer, GPS tracker led us to a vacation rental property about 20 miles away. The woman who took it was still there. Me, what did she say when you arrested her? Officer, that's the interesting part. She claims you gave her permission to borrow it. Me, what? I've never seen her before in my life. Officer, we figured. She's sticking to her story, though. Says you approached her at the gas station and offered to let her use the car. Me, that's completely insane. Officer, yeah, we're not buying it either. especially since the security footage shows her just taking the car while you were inside. When I got back home, I followed up with the police department to see what happened with the case. Turns out, Karen, that's what I started calling her in my head, had doubled down on her ridiculous story. She told the police that I'd approached her at the gas station and offered to let her borrow the rental car because she seemed stressed about getting to her vacation rental. According to her version of events, I was just being a good Samaritan and had given her the keys. The problem with her story was that the security footage clearly showed me going inside to pay before she even appeared on camera. There was no conversation between us, no interaction at all. She simply walked up to a locked car and somehow got inside. Detective, her story doesn't match the evidence at all. Plus, even if someone did offer to let her borrow a car, taking it without any paperwork or identification exchange would still be theft. So what happens now? Detective, she's being charged with motor vehicle theft. The video evidence is pretty clear-cut. 3 months later, I got a call from the prosecutor's office. Karen had tried to plead not guilty, maintaining her story about having permission to take the car. But when they showed the security footage in court, along with my testimony that I'd never spoken to her, the judge wasn't having it. Prosecutor, she was convicted on all charges, got 6 months in jail, and has to pay restitution to the rental company. She really stuck with that story the whole time. Prosecutor, right up until the verdict. Some people just can't admit when they're wrong. The whole experience taught me to be more careful with rental cars, but honestly, I'm not sure what I could have done differently. The rental company later told me that she'd probably use some kind of electronic device to unlock the car. Apparently, it's becoming more common with newer vehicles. What amazes me is that she thought claiming I gave her permission would somehow make it legal. Even if that had been true, which it obviously wasn't, you can't just take someone's car based on a casual conversation at a gas station. The detective said she probably saw an opportunity and took it, then panicked when she got caught and made up the first excuse she could think of. Unfortunately for her, security cameras don't lie. Story 2. I take the commuter train to work every morning, and I've been riding the same route for 3 years. It's usually a peaceful 40-minute journey, with most passengers keeping to themselves and following basic train etiquette. But last month, I witnessed something that made me lose faith in humanity for a while. It was a typical Tuesday morning rush hour. I had my usual seat near the middle of the car, reading my book and enjoying my coffee. The train was running on schedule, making its regular stops as we headed into the city. Everything was normal until we reached the suburban station where this whole mess started. The train pulled into the platform, and the usual crowd of commuters was waiting to board. The doors opened with their familiar chime, and people began filing on and off in the organized chaos that defines rush hour public transportation. That's when I noticed her. She was a woman in her 40s, well-dressed in business attire, standing right in the doorway and refusing to move. At first, I thought maybe she was just confused about whether she was getting on or off. But then I heard her talking loudly on her phone. "Karen, where are you? The train is here and I'm holding the door for you." The conductor made the standard announcement about doors closing, but she didn't budge. Other passengers were trying to squeeze around her to get on and off the train, clearly annoyed by the obstruction she was creating. "Passenger, excuse me, can you step aside so people can board?" "Karen, I'm waiting for someone. They'll be here any second." "Passenger, the train needs to leave on schedule. Your friend can catch the next one." "Karen, she's almost here. Just give us 1 more minute." The conductor walked over from his position at the front of the car. He was polite but firm, explaining that the train had to maintain its schedule for all the other passengers. "Conductor, ma'am, I need you to either board the train or step back onto the platform. We can't hold the doors indefinitely." "Karen, my friend is running from the parking lot. She just texted me that she's almost here." "Conductor, the next train comes in 20 minutes. She can catch that one." "Karen, 20 minutes. That's completely unreasonable. We have an important meeting to get to. Conductor, I understand. But we have hundreds of other passengers who also have important places to be. She was still on her phone, apparently coordinating with her friend who was somewhere in the station. The delay was now approaching 5 minutes, and people were getting visibly frustrated. Karen, there she is. I can see her running up the stairs. But when we all looked toward the staircase, there was no one there. She was obviously lying to buy more time. Conductor, ma'am, this is your final warning. Board the train or step away from the doors. Karen, you can't leave without us. We paid for tickets. Conductor, your tickets are valid for any train today. You just need to use the next one. Karen, that's discrimination. You're targeting us because we're women. At this point, the conductor had no choice but to try to close the doors. But she positioned herself directly in the doorway, using her body to keep the doors from closing completely. The safety sensors on the doors prevented them from closing when they detected an obstruction, so the train remained stuck at the station. She was literally holding an entire train car full of people hostage while waiting for her friend. Conductor, ma'am, you're preventing the train from operating safely. I'm going to have to call transit police if you don't move. Karen, call whoever you want. I'm not moving until my friend gets here. That's when things took a dramatic turn. Apparently realizing that her door-blocking strategy wasn't working, she suddenly changed tactics. Without warning, she threw herself down onto the floor of the train car and started screaming. Karen, help! I'm having a medical emergency. I'm so dizzy, I can't stand up. She was writhing around on the floor, clutching her head and moaning loudly. Every passenger in the car was staring in shock at this sudden performance. Karen, someone call an ambulance. I think I'm having a stroke. The conductor immediately radioed for medical assistance, and the train's emergency protocols kicked in. When someone claims to have a medical emergency on public transportation, everything stops until paramedics can evaluate the situation. Karen, I can't see properly. Everything is spinning. This is so scary. She was really committing to the act, making herself cry and hyperventilating. Some passengers actually looked concerned and offered to help, not realizing they were watching an elaborate lie. But here's where her plan fell apart. While she was on the floor pretending to be having a medical crisis, her phone was still in her hand, and she kept checking it for messages from her friend. I was sitting close enough to see her screen clearly, and she was actively texting while supposedly being too dizzy and disoriented to stand up. The conductor noticed this too. Conductor, ma'am, if you're having a medical emergency, why are you texting on your phone? Karen, I'm trying to text my emergency contact. My vision is blurry, but I can still see a little bit. Conductor, you're typing pretty clearly for someone with blurred vision and severe dizziness. Karen, the symptoms come and go. This is a real emergency. But then her phone rang, and without thinking, she answered it normally. Karen, hi, are you at the platform yet? I'm holding the train. The entire car went silent. She'd just blown her cover completely by answering her phone and talking about holding the train while supposedly experiencing a medical emergency. Conductor, ma'am, stand up immediately. This is fraud, and I'm calling transit police right now. Karen, I really am feeling dizzy. The phone call just distracted me from the symptoms. Conductor, you just told your friend you're holding the train. That's not consistent with a medical emergency. Karen, I misspoke. I'm confused because of my condition. By now, transit police had arrived at the station. The conductor explained the situation that she had been blocking the doors, then faked a medical emergency, and was caught texting and taking phone calls while supposedly incapacitated. Transit officer, ma'am, I need you to get up off the floor. Karen, I don't think I can. I'm still feeling faint. Transit officer, your phone records show you've been texting normally for the past 10 minutes. Medical emergencies don't usually allow for coherent text conversations. Karen, maybe it's not as serious as I thought. I might be feeling a little better now. Transit officer, stand up, please. She reluctantly got to her feet, suddenly having no trouble with balance or vision. Her medical emergency had miraculously resolved the moment she realized she was caught. Transit officer, you're being cited for interfering with public transportation and filing a false emergency report. Karen, this is harassment. I was genuinely concerned about my health. Transit officer, yet you made no attempt to seek actual medical attention. You just wanted to delay the train. Karen, my friend really was coming. She just got stuck in traffic. Transit officer, that doesn't give you the right to hold up public transportation for hundreds of people. The citation she received included a hefty fine and a 6-month ban from using the entire train line. She also had to pay additional fees for the emergency response that was triggered by her fake medical crisis. Karen, 6 months. How am I supposed to get to work? Transit officer, you should have thought about that before disrupting service and lying about an emergency. Karen, this is completely unfair. All I did was wait for my friend. Transit officer, you blocked doors, delayed a train, faked a medical emergency, and wasted emergency resources. As they escorted her off the train, she was still complaining about how unreasonable everyone was being. Her friend never did show up, which made the whole performance even more pointless. The conductor apologized to all the passengers for the delay, and we finally got moving again. The whole incident had cost us about 25 minutes, making dozens of people late for work and appointments. I still think about that morning sometimes, amazed at how far someone will go to avoid a minor inconvenience. Rather than just catching the next train, she chose to create a massive scene, lie about a medical emergency, and ultimately get herself banned from public transportation for months. The worst part was how her fake emergency could have prevented real help from reaching someone who actually needed it. Emergency resources are limited, and she wasted them on her selfish drama. I haven't seen her on the train since, but I'm sure she's learned that public transportation runs on schedules, not on personal convenience. Story 3. I've been working in retail loss prevention for 8 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything. Shoplifters hiding merchandise in purses, stuffing items down their pants, even trying to walk out wearing multiple layers of clothing. But what happened last month at the department store where I work was a new low, even for someone in my line of work. Let me give you some background first. I work for a high-end department store in the mall, the kind of place that sells designer handbags and shoes that cost more than most people's rent. My job is to watch for shoplifters using the security cameras and walk the floor looking for suspicious behavior. It's not glamorous work, but I'm good at it, and I take pride in protecting honest customers and employees from theft. The store layout is pretty typical. Women's shoes are on the first floor near the main entrance, with designer brands like expensive Italian stilettos and luxury sneakers displayed on glass shelves. We keep the really expensive stuff locked up, but there's still plenty of merchandise sitting out that costs several $100s per pair. It was a busy Saturday afternoon when I first noticed her. She was a woman in her mid-20s pushing a fancy stroller with a baby who couldn't have been more than 6 months old. The baby was sleeping peacefully under a pink blanket, and she was dressed like she belonged in our store designer purse, expensive-looking clothes, the whole package. At first, nothing seemed unusual. She browsed the shoe department like any other customer, picking up different styles and checking price tags. I was monitoring several other people at the same time, so I wasn't focused entirely on her. But something about her behavior started to catch my attention. She kept looking around nervously, checking to see if anyone was watching her. That's always a red flag in my business. Honest customers don't constantly scan for security cameras and employees. She'd pick up a shoe, examine it, then glance around before putting it back down. I decided to keep a closer eye on her through the camera system. From my office upstairs, I had a perfect view of the entire shoe department. I watched as she made her way to the designer section where we keep the most expensive merchandise. That's when things got interesting. She picked up a pair of stilettos. I could see from the display that they were priced at $450. She held them for a moment, looked around again, then did something I'd never seen before. She walked over to her stroller and carefully lifted the corner of the blanket covering her sleeping baby. Without disturbing the child, she slipped the shoes under the blanket next to the baby and gently tucked the blanket back in place. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This woman was using her infant as cover for shoplifting. The baby never woke up, just kept sleeping peacefully, while expensive designer shoes were hidden underneath the blanket. But she wasn't done. Over the next 20 minutes, I watched her repeat this process 3 more times. Each time, she'd select a pair of expensive shoes, pretend to consider them, then casually walk over to the stroller and hide them under the blanket with her baby. By the time she was finished, she had 4 pairs of designer shoes hidden in that stroller, totaling over $1,500 in merchandise. The baby was still sleeping soundly, completely unaware that they were being used as an accessory to theft. I called down to my colleague on the floor to keep an eye on her while I documented everything. We have a policy about not confronting shoplifters until they actually leave the store, because technically they haven't committed theft until they pass the point of payment without paying. The woman spent another few minutes browsing other departments, probably trying to look casual. She stopped at the makeup counter and actually bought a lipstick, paying with a credit card like nothing was wrong. I think she thought this would make her look legitimate if anyone questioned her. Finally, she headed toward the exit. I watched on the cameras as she pushed the stroller past the checkout counters and the security sensors at the door. The baby was still sleeping, and the stolen shoes were still hidden under the blanket. The moment she stepped outside the store, I radioed to my partner, who was positioned near the entrance. She's out. 4 pairs, total value $1,520. My colleague approached her in the mall corridor just outside our store. Loss prevention officer, excuse me, ma'am. I'm with store security. I need to speak with you about some merchandise. Karen, I'm sorry. What? I don't understand. Loss prevention officer, we need you to come back into the store with us. Karen, I bought everything I have. Here's my receipt. She showed him the receipt for the lipstick, acting confused and innocent. Loss prevention officer, ma'am, we're not talking about the lipstick. We need to check your stroller. That's when her whole demeanor changed. The fake confusion disappeared, and she got defensive immediately. Karen, you cannot search my baby's stroller. That's harassment. Loss prevention officer, we have video evidence of theft. You can cooperate now, or we can call the police and let them handle it. Karen, this is discrimination. You're only stopping me because I'm a young mother. A small crowd was starting to gather, and the baby finally woke up from all the commotion and started crying. Karen picked up the baby, which was smart on her part, because she knew we wouldn't want to upset a child any more than necessary. Loss prevention officer, ma'am, please put the baby back in the stroller so we can resolve this. Karen, I'm not putting my baby down. You people are scaring him. But here's the thing about working loss prevention. We deal with every excuse in the book. I'd already called mall security and the police before she even left the store, because the value of the merchandise made this felony theft. 2 police officers arrived within minutes. The baby was crying louder now, and Karen was trying to use that to gain sympathy from the growing crowd of onlookers. Karen, officers, these people are harassing me and my baby. I haven't done anything wrong. Officer, ma'am, we need you to calm down. We're just here to investigate a report of theft. Karen, I have my receipt right here. I paid for everything. Officer, we understand you purchased a lipstick, but there are allegations that you took other merchandise without paying. Karen, that's ridiculous. Check my purse if you want. But you're not touching my baby's stroller. The officer looked at my colleague, who explained that we had video evidence and needed to search the stroller. The officer was professional but firm. Officer, ma'am, I'm going to need you to place the baby in the stroller so we can examine it. Karen, this is illegal. You can't use my child for your investigation. Officer, nobody's using your child. We're investigating a crime, and if you don't cooperate, You'll be arrested for obstruction." Finally realizing she was trapped, Karen reluctantly put the crying baby back in the stroller. The officer carefully lifted the blanket, and there they were 4 pairs of expensive designer shoes tucked around the baby like hidden treasure. The officer held up 1 pair of stilettos, still with the price tag attached. "Officer, ma'am, can you explain why there are unpaid merchandise items in your baby's stroller?" Karen, "Those aren't mine. Someone must have put them there." Officer, "Someone put 4 pairs of expensive shoes in your baby's stroller without you noticing." Karen, "Yes, this store is trying to frame me. But we had everything on video. I provided the security footage to the police right there on my tablet, showing her entire shoplifting spree from multiple camera angles. You could clearly see her selecting each pair of shoes and deliberately hiding them under the blanket with her baby." Officer, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for felony theft." Karen, "This is insane. I'm a good mother. I would never use my baby to steal." The video evidence said otherwise. As they put the handcuffs on her, she kept insisting that she was being set up and that the whole thing was a misunderstanding. The baby had calmed down by then and was just looking around with wide eyes, probably wondering why mommy was surrounded by police officers. The worst part was watching them figure out what to do with the baby. Karen kept demanding that they couldn't arrest her because she had to take care of her child. But that's not how the law works. They ended up calling her mother to come pick up the baby while Karen was processed. When Karen's mother arrived, you could see the shame and disappointment on her face. She apologized to everyone involved and took the baby without saying much to her daughter. Karen tried to get her mother to bail her out right away, but the older woman just shook her head and walked away with the grandchild. Later, we found out this wasn't Karen's first offense. She had a history of retail theft at other stores, but this was the first time she'd been caught using her baby as part of the scheme. The prosecutor decided to make an example of her case because of how she'd involved an innocent child in her criminal activity. The judge wasn't sympathetic either. During sentencing, he specifically mentioned how disturbing it was that she'd used her infant to commit theft, potentially putting the child in danger if the situation had escalated. She got 18 months in prison and had to pay restitution to our store. The whole experience really affected our staff. We're used to dealing with shoplifters, but seeing someone use their own baby as a tool for theft was something none of us had encountered before. We ended up having to create new training procedures for situations involving children, because nobody knew quite how to handle it in the moment. What really got to me was how she showed no remorse throughout the entire process. Even when she was being arrested, she was more concerned about getting caught than about what she'd put her baby through. The child could have been traumatized by the whole situation, and she seemed to think everyone else was the problem. The baby is doing fine now, by the way. Child Services got involved briefly, but the grandmother stepped up and took custody while Karen was in prison. Sometimes I wonder if that little boy will ever know how his mother tried to use him to steal shoes, and I hope for his sake that he never finds out. Story 4. I'm a junior at State University, and I earned one of the best rooms on campus through the housing lottery, a corner room with huge windows and a small balcony. I spent 3 days setting it up perfectly when move-in week started. My new neighbor across the hall is a sweet freshman who seemed nervous about starting college. Her mother was helping her move in, making multiple trips with boxes. The freshman stopped by my open door during one trip. Roommate, wow, your room is incredible. I can't believe how much space you have. Me, thanks. Corner rooms are hard to get through the lottery system. Roommate, the balcony is amazing. I wish my room had one. Her mother barely acknowledged me when she walked past, but I figured we'd probably become friends since we were living so close. On the 3rd day, I heard a knock. The freshman's mother stood there with a clipboard and measuring tape. Karen, hi there. I'm here about the room situation. We need to discuss swapping rooms. My daughter should have this corner room instead of the tiny space she was assigned. Me, there's no room swapping happening. Assignments are based on the housing lottery. Karen, That system is flawed if freshmen are stuck in closets, while upperclassmen hoard the good rooms. Without being invited, she pushed past me into my room. Karen, yes, this will work much better for her. She needs space for all her belongings. Me, you can't just walk into my room. Karen, I'm evaluating the space. She has so many clothes that won't fit in that tiny room. Me, housing assignments are final. Karen, nothing is final until classes start. She started examining everything, picking up my decorations and testing my furniture. Then she shocked me by grabbing my desk and trying to move it. Karen, this needs to be over there. The feng shui is terrible. Me, stop. Do not touch my furniture. Karen, this is all wrong for the space. She kept rearranging, moving my chair, shifting my bookshelf, unplugging my lamp. I spent 3 days organizing everything perfectly, and she was destroying it. Me, you need to leave immediately. Karen, I'll leave when we're finished. Now, this couch is too big for the space. She started dragging my 100-pound couch toward the door. Me, I'm calling campus security. Karen, go ahead. They'll see the housing office made a mistake and help us fix it. Her daughter appeared, looking mortified. Roommate, Mom, what are you doing? Karen, fixing your housing situation, sweetheart. This room is better suited to your needs. Roommate, you can't just take someone else's room. Karen, it's not taking if it should have been yours in the first place. I called security while Karen continued moving my furniture. 2 officers arrived as she was repositioning my bed. Security officer, what's the problem here? Me. This woman broke into my room and is moving my furniture without permission. Karen, I didn't break in. I'm resolving a housing mix-up. My daughter was assigned an inadequate room. Security officer, parents don't have authority to reassign housing or enter students' rooms. Karen, the housing office made an obvious mistake. Look how small her room is. Security officer, ma'am, I need you to stop moving this student's belongings and leave. Karen, I'm not finished organizing. We need to figure out the best arrangement. Security officer, you're not authorized to organize anything in this room. They had to physically stop her from continuing. She was determined to finish her improvements. Security officer, you need to leave this building immediately. Karen, I'm not leaving until my daughter gets a proper room. Security officer, your daughter has a room across the hall. Karen, that's a closet. My daughter has special needs, extensive wardrobe requirements. Security officer, needing closet space isn't a disability. You're being escorted off campus and banned from this building. Karen, this is discrimination. I'm filing complaints with the dean and university president. As they escorted her out, she shouted instructions to her daughter about demanding room changes. Her poor daughter was crying with embarrassment. Later, the housing director called to confirm I wanted to keep my assigned room and added a note about the incident. Karen was banned from all residence halls and continued calling the university for weeks, demanding meetings about discriminatory housing practices. My neighbor and I became good friends after the incident. She's learning to set boundaries with her overbearing mother while succeeding in her first year. Sometimes she looks wistfully at my setup, but she understands that some things in life have to be earned rather than demanded.